and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's top stories. Families of kidnapped soldiers demonstrate in Akkad calling for the release of their loved ones, as Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk warns that the situation in Arsal is a ticking time bomb. The United States delivers a shipment of military equipment to the Lebanese army after a pledge to boost Lebanon's security forces. And U.S. President Barack Obama says the U.S. is preparing a range of military options for confronting Islamic State militants in Syria, but no strategy has been developed yet. Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk has warned that the situation in Arsal is a ticking time bomb, and Lebanon's political forces must reach a consensus to defuse it. Following a meeting with Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun, Mashnouk revealed that the Lebanese army formed a committee to investigate the jihadists' alleged beheading of a soldier who was taken captive in the border town of Arsal earlier this month. The minister said he and Aoun discussed the need to activate the functions of parliament to debate essential issues, mainly the situation in Arsal. Mashnouk also said that Lebanon must control the entry of Syrian refugees into the country to curb the political, economic and security threat. Mashnouk's meeting with Aoun comes after the families of 29 Lebanese soldiers and policemen held hostage by Islamist militants in Arsal staged a sit-in outside the Halba Serai in North Lebanon, calling for intensified action to bring their loved ones home. The peaceful protest in the Akkar town of Halba was attended by a crowd of about 200. The protest came hours after images of what appeared to be the beheading of Ali Sayyid, a soldier held captive by ISIS, were heavily circulated on social media last night. The United States has delivered a shipment of military equipment to the Lebanese army, one of the first handovers of weapons after a number of world and regional powers pledged to boost Lebanon's security forces in the face of a growing threat from terrorists. The shipment, including M16 rifles, anti-tank system, and a number of different sized mortars, was handed over to the armies at Beirut's Rafiq Hariri International Airport. While the U.S. has donated billions of dollars in supplies to the Lebanese army over the last decade, most previous donations have been non-lethal equipment, including armored personnel carriers, light aircraft, and communication systems. After gun battles between the army and fighters from the Nusra Front and ISIS erupted in the border region of Arsal earlier this month, Lebanon said it needed offensive and defensive equipment to face battle-hardened fighters from Syria. France and the UK have also pledged to deliver military aid, while Saudi Arabia announced a $1 billion donation to bolster the Lebanese army.
Support for the Lebanese army and Lebanon's other security services is a top priority for the United States. On August 2, extremists attacked in Arsal. On August 3, I met with General Kahwaji and asked what America could do to help. After coordinating with Prime Minister Salam, Defense Minister Muqbil, and other senior officials of the Lebanese government, we acted. We moved to supply the army with the weapons and ammunition it asked for and that it needs to secure Lebanon's borders and defeat these extremist groups that threaten Lebanon's security. Yesterday, 480 anti-tank guided missiles and more than 500 M16A4 rifles and many mortars. And today, 1,000 M16A4 rifles. Soon, more mortars, grenade launchers, machine guns, and anti-tank weapons will be arriving. And over the coming weeks, more ammunition and more heavy weaponry will be delivered from the United States to the Army on an urgent basis.
Parliament member Joseph Maalouf says the presidential vacuum in the past 3 months has left the government nearly paralyzed and hindered the country's economic development. Lebanon's parliament has failed to elect a new president 8 times since April due to a lack of quorum among the main political parties.
We see now, under the vacancy that has existed for the last 3 months, because of the vacancy and we're having no president, the government is almost paralyzed. Why is it paralyzed? Because the president of the country still has a lot of power in terms of the management of the cabinet. There are on 2 levels issues that the absence of the president would cause. One of them is the confidence in our system. And that confidence is as well on 2 levels. The confidence of the Lebanese people in the viability of the system, and the confidence of international entities including World Bank, UN, etc., as well as international investors, be it regional or international, whose confidence in Lebanon would be shaken. The other dimension, in addition to this, is the fact that with the vacancy of the office, there are plenty of issues that relate to our own way of managing the country on a legislative level.
UN peacekeeping troops have been seized by Syrian opposition groups in the Golan Heights, while 75 remain in tense standoff with rebels after fighting at the Quneitra border crossing that sparked an exchange of fire with Israeli troops. The U.S. is accusing Jabhat al-Nusra, the Syrian rebel group with links to al-Qaeda, of being behind the capture of the Fijan troops. Another 75 peacekeepers originating from the Philippines are currently under siege after they refused to give up their weapons when confronted with a Syrian militia. U.S. President Barack Obama says he has asked officials to prepare a range of U.S. military options for confronting Islamic State militants in Syria, but says his strategy is still being developed. At a news conference, Obama cautioned against speculation that he was on the brink of a decision to expand airstrikes against the Islamic State beyond targets already being hit in Iraq by U.S. aerial attacks.
It's not just my opinion. I think it'd be international opinion that Assad's lost legitimacy in terms of dropping barrel bombs on innocent families and killing tens of thousands of people. And right now what we're seeing is the areas that ISIL is occupying are not controlled by Assad anyway. And frankly, Assad doesn't seem to have the capability or reach to get into those areas. So, I don't think there's a situation where we have to choose between Assad or the kinds of people who carry on the incredible violence that we've been seeing there. We will continue to support a moderate opposition inside of Syria, in part because we have to give people inside of Syria a choice other than ISIL or Assad.
The UN High Commissioner for Refugees says the crisis in Syria is the biggest humanitarian emergency of our era. The UN reported that more than 3 million people have now been forced to flee the country, an increase of 1 million in the past year alone. A total of 6.5 million Syrians have been displaced from their homes, more than half of them children. The agency said its work to help the Syrian refugees is now the largest operation in its 64-year history. And coming up next, celebrity couple Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie finally tie the knot. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The United Nations Security Council has expressed deep concerns about the escalation of conflicts in eastern Ukraine and called for an immediate ceasefire. UN Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs Jeffrey Feltman said Russian troops were reported to have entered into Ukrainian territory within the past 48 hours in what the Ukrainian government has labeled an invasion, but Russia has reportedly denied those charges. Feltman also pointed out that the priority now is to launch an international investigation to ensure the security of the Russia-Ukraine border. U.S. President Barack Obama said the United States and its allies will look for ways to expand economic sanctions on Russia, but stop short of calling the recent Russian aggression an invasion.
Russia determined that it had to be a little more overt in what it had already been doing, but it's not really a shift. What we have seen, though, is that President Putin and Russia have repeatedly passed by potential off-ramps to resolve this diplomatically. And so in our consultations with our European allies and partners, my expectation is that we will take additional steps, primarily because we have not seen any meaningful action on the part of Russia to actually try to resolve this in diplomatic fashion. And I think that the sanctions that we've already applied have been effective. Our intelligence shows that the Russians know they've been effective, even though it may not appear on Russian television. And I think there are ways for us to deepen or expand the scope of some of that work. But ultimately, I think what's important to recognize is the degree to which Russian decision-making is isolating Russia. They're doing this to themselves. And what I've been encouraged by is the degree to which our European partners recognize, even though they are bearing a cost in implementing these sanctions, they understand that a broader principle is at stake. And we will continue to stand firm with our allies and partners that what is happening is wrong, that there is a solution that allows Ukraine and Russia to live peacefully, but it is not in the cards for us to see a military confrontation between Russia and the United States in this region. Keep in mind, however, that I'm about to go to a NATO conference. Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but a number of those states that are close by are. And we take our Article 5 commitments to defend each other very seriously.
The World Health Organization has issued a roadmap to guide and coordinate the international response to the outbreak of the Ebola virus in West Africa. The organization says the aim of the roadmap is to stop ongoing Ebola transmission worldwide within 6 to 9 months, while rapidly managing the consequences of any further international spread. WHO has previously warned about the urgent need to dramatically scale up the international response to the unprecedented Ebola outbreak, which has now killed over 1,500 people. And now for some news around the world in brief. Pakistan's powerful military has stepped back into politics, agreeing to mediate between the government and protesters demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif over alleged voting fraud. This marks the army's first overt involvement in politics in a year since Sharif became Prime Minister in Pakistan's first democratic transfer of power. Millions of Argentinian workers have taken part in a 24-hour nationwide strike in the capital, Buenos Aires, against high inflation and rising unemployment rates. The strikers, organized by the General Confederation of Labor, blocked several major roads to Buenos Aires. The country is in the midst of a serious economic crisis, with experts predicting the country might see negative growth this year. Peruvian police have seized a record 6.5 tons of cocaine in a quiet coastal town this week, arresting 7 Peruvians and 2 Mexicans suspected of trying to smuggle the load to Europe as coal. Images provided by the government show the cocaine was packed into brick-sized packets and glued inside large chunks of coal. Fan favorites and industry heavyweights Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie finally got married. After dating for almost a decade and raising 6 children together, the couple exchanged vows in a private ceremony at their property Chateau Miraval in France and reportedly took advantage of the Emmy weekend to avoid the public eye. All the Jolie-Pitt kids participated in the ceremony, as well as the couple's close friends. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Families of kidnapped soldiers demonstrate in Akkad, calling for the release of their loved ones, as Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk warns that the situation in Arsal is a ticking time bomb. The United States delivers a shipment of military equipment to the Lebanese army after a pledge to boost Lebanon's security forces. And U.S. President Barack Obama says the U.S. is preparing a range of military options for confronting Islamic State militants in Syria, but no strategy has yet been developed. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice weekend.